Chelsea Football Club and Sporting Equals UK unveiled 4 Asian footballing champions from May 10th, 2013. Sporting Equals UK is a UK-wide equality charity that promotes more ethnic minority people into sport, and they were proud to support this year's groundbreaking Asian Star initiative, led by the Chelsea FC Foundation, which also one of our coaches, Manisha Taylor, actually brought up the Asian Star to our attention because she has been involved as a ambassador for them, and she's been involved in a lot of the marketing for them. And also Asian Star is the first scheme of its kind undertaken by a professional club, and is designed to increase in Asian participation at all levels of the game. It gives the opportunity for children to compete to win a season-long placement within the Chelsea FC Foundation's Football Development Centre. The Asian Star Initiative also helps also aims to help address the underrepresentation of the Asian community in sport by offering opportunities for the Asian community to find out about coaching and other ways to get involved in the national game. Nearly 400 Asian youngsters gathered at the European Champions training ground in Cobham, Surrey. Participants competed in their under-9s to under-12 age groups and were judged on a series of matches and tests specifically designed and used by the Chelsea Academy to examine speed, skill and ability. Arun Kang, Chief Executive Officer of Sporting Equals, said Sporting Equals are delighted to be working with the Chelsea FC Foundation and supporting Asian Star 2013. There is currently underrepresentation of Asian faces in football, and Chelsea understand the moral, social and commercial value of growing Asian talent in the UK. Chelsea has shown their commitment to finding players from Asian backgrounds, opening up their youth programs to the whole community to increase participation at all levels of the game. Sporting Equals work across sport to promote ethnic diversity at all levels, and this project can be replicated to help other sports engage untapped markets. So pre-event launch was set up by Sporting Equals in Southall, London, which has a large Asian community to support young players in preparation for the main event at Cobham. Now, that was actually sent to us. In the interest of time, we can't read the whole thing, but it's one that was sent over to us by Sunny Sahota of Ensolarado Marketing. So thank you for that, Sunny. Much appreciated in terms of getting that over to us. And also, it's quite unique actually, because obviously in terms of Asian engagement in football, we've had Pitch Talk meets with Manisha Taylor, and race in football did come up. In terms of her work, and she does a hell of a lot of work, not even just to get Asian children engaged in football, because she also coaches at Indian Gymkhana, which is an Asian football club in West London. But it's quite interesting that today we've actually got Samir Sawhney with us, because as he mentioned earlier on today, he runs Motivate Sport and Fitness, which also works in the realm of trying to get Asian children participating in football as well. And you know what, Samir, with what you've just said, in the Skype chat, in regards to Asian participation in football, feel free. Have a mention, like bring that up, articulate to the people what you said, and also if you've got an opinion about the women's game, let us know as well, because first and foremost I'd like to say that the Asian Star Initiative, fantastic. We just need more of it. Just need more of it and more initiatives like it. And I know that, Samir, you're involved in your own sort of initiatives to do with it as well. And the women's game, it's very good to see that the women's game is getting, as I've said before, it's great to see the women's game getting a bit of shine. And that is very, very important in terms of raising the profile of it and also raising the level of it as well. We've gone in depth in past shows about the women's game, and we really hope it kicks off. Really hope so. But Samir, how about it in terms of the women's game and also the Asian game as well?
With the women's game, obviously, having people like Manisha, I know Manisha, I've met Manisha. She's a real, as you probably guys will know, she's really enthusiastic, professional.
Yeah, tremendous.
She's just a nice girl, but she gets it, and she destroys that stereotype of, it's a man's game. We're all modern thinking people here, but unfortunately it still exists. I can tell you, I mean, I can't name names, but I've been in plenty of meetings in the last decade of my career in football where I've specifically heard people above me in the industry saying women have no place in football. That's in like the last couple of years alone, which is shocking. But to me, that's no different to someone saying, I don't want a black person in my team, I don't want an Asian person in my team. It's an unacceptable thing that still, unfortunately, is there. In a minority, but still enough. So having people like Manisha are really important, because Manisha's transgressed from just being a lady who works in the ladies' game. She's someone who is working, obviously, with young men and adults as well. That's really important because it's showing the whole, the transgression, as I said, from one aspect to another. Ladies don't necessarily have to work with ladies. You look at the Women's Super League, you have men coaching women, and that's really important. Going over to the Asian side of the game, Chelsea Star, I've been aware of for the last, 5-6 years. And like you were saying there, my only, not criticism, my only thing is there needs to be, as you guys have rightly said, there needs to be more. And my argument would be, whilst I like what Chelsea Star are doing, we need not just Chelsea to be doing it, we need lots of clubs to be doing year-round, unbroken delivery periods in communities. So like they obviously did stuff in Southall. My argument would be these programs need to be there 52 weeks a year, not 1 week a year. Because obviously these kids, they want to see the badge coming into their local, on their estate. They want to see these guys doing community events year round. Clubs are doing that. In terms of what I'm doing, I'm involved with, I don't know if you remember a player, Zesh Rahman, who was a Fulham defender. He's been around the leagues. His last English club is Bradford. He's now out in Asia having a fantastic career. I know his brother, and he set up the Zesh Rahman Foundation a few years ago. We've a group of guys like myself and other individuals in the industry have come together. And Zesh Rahman is working with the Players Football Association and the Premier League on a project called S2S, which is called Sidelines to Sidelines, which is specifically set up to get more Asian coaches into the game. Now you could say, well, why are we targeting just Asian coaches? There's a specific reason, because if you think about it, one of the key areas that there was a problem with, even when I was growing up, was, and I'm sure you guys have seen it, how many coaches did we see? I'm 33 years old this month. How many coaches in the 80s and 90s when I was playing junior league, amateur football, even semi-pro and having professional trials, I didn't see any Asian coaches. Now, for me, it wasn't that big a deal. I come from a part of West London where it's a melting pot society. But when you're going to certain areas where that's not prevalent, having an Asian person there, it's not having a brown face, if you don't mind me using that term. No. It's having someone who can understand where you're from and making you feel a little bit welcome. One quick example, I saw a player a few years ago when I was doing my scouting experience who was of Muslim extraction. He was getting absolutely blasted by his coach. It was a really hot summer's day near the end of the season. And I spoke to another lad that knew him on the sideline. He said the coach isn't aware that he's got Ramadan at the moment and he's fasting. That lad quit. He walked away from football, I heard. And he had undoubted talent. Yeah. That's why programs like the one I'm involved in, I'm not promoting so much what I'm doing, but saying generally why they're so important. Just because we need to have more role models from those communities. And I look back to when I was very young. One of my heroes, even though I was only a little boy back then, Cyril Regis. Now, if we had an Asian Cyril Regis or someone like that burst through, and like you had the 3 degrees at West Brom, including him, those are the sorts of guys that we're searching for. And like West Brom, funnily enough, have had 2 Asian players who have played for England schoolboys and have had substitutes appear. They haven't played in the first team, but they've been sitting on the sub bench this season to give them that unrivaled experience. And if you look at a club like West Brom, who are very sustainable now, they are going down that route, and they're in a very, very big Asian community. It's the way they play football as well. A lot of stereotypes are being broken down. Trust me, there are Asian talent out there. But I've written an article, and I'll send it to you guys to have a read, actually, which is about to be published just about this. But it's a very, very deep model. But there is a lot going on. It's just taking its sweet time.
No, I hear that. I mean, it's one of them was, anything anything worth having is worth working hard for, and it does take time to build it up. Hey, look at us. Look at Pitch Talk. It's one of them was, we are trying to build a footballing revolution here. And at the end of the day, it's a case of, more stuff. Obviously, there's more stuff than what is perpetuated through what I like to generally call the parasitic media, because the media on a general basis would rather focus on the negative. We, however, like to focus on the positive, especially with our interview series Pitch Talk meets. I mean, we'd much rather spotlight someone who's doing very good things in football, whether it's Asian focused, black focused, white focused, we don't care. It's a case of if you're doing something positive in football, that's what we like to focus on. And the fact of the matter is, to see what's happening with the women's game right now, to see what's happening with Asian engagement in football, and we've had a couple of YouTube videos asking, featuring Coach Gman Ali, featuring also Manisha Taylor, and also wrestler Nitin Rampuria, aka Vane, from RNV Wrestling, asking them what kind of barriers are there in terms of Asian players getting into football. At the end of the day, there are still barriers there, and there is still work to be done to break down barriers. In terms of black players, we basically have still that barrier in terms of upper management, which is part of the reason why I'm so badly hoping that Chris Powell gets a chance to take Charlton to the Premier League. 9th place, straight up from League One, 9th place in his first season, mate, very close to the playoffs. It's one of them ones. I'm just hoping. But it always takes one person to light that blue touch paper. So it's one of them ones where you just hope that change is coming. You hope it is. And if we can be a catalyst to help it, then hey, it's one of them ones. But you know what? There's been a couple of interesting things said in the Skype chat. Jezzie, did you want to jump in on this point before we throw it back out to the Skype chat? Because there's been a couple of interesting points.
I'll tell you what. Let's take it to the points in the Skype chat, and then let's jump back to me.
Okay, cool. Mike Harneman, you want to articulate the point that you put in the Skype chat? Because there's a couple more.
Yeah, basically all I said was, it's good doing it for the players, that's brilliant and everything like that. But for the officials as well, like we got, when we were obviously in non-league with Stevenage, we had Asian refs, we had female refs, we had like pretty much everything, to be honest. And I'm just wondering what there is actually out there for them, basically, and, programs or help that they can get as well.
No, that's true, actually. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, there's initiatives obviously there helping not just players, but managers and getting into coaching, just engagement with the game in general. So, it's engaging Asian players is a good starting point, and then obviously you've got to kind of filter out to other areas. Umbreen, you said a couple of quite interesting things in the Skype chat about in regards you said a couple of good things actually about Asian engagement in football and platforms. Would you like to articulate that for the people?
Yes, hiya. Just a couple of points. Now, obviously, I wouldn't know the proportion of Asian footballers within the world as a whole, I suppose. But I was just going to say, I do know that the Asian Football Awards are quite a big thing, and they have been, I think they were launched in the House of Lords or something, so they are kind of on a quite a good platform as well.
Yeah, it's actually in October. I know you're talking about the Asian Football Awards are actually in October, and they had their launch event down at the Houses of Parliament recently. Big shout out to Baljit Rihal, who actually runs the Asian Football Awards down there. Yeah, their event is in October. We will be keeping you posted on that. Sorry, Umbreen, I just felt that was worthy of mention.
Each other on Twitter actually, which is quite interesting. But I was also going to say in terms of Asians playing football, like I was saying in the Skype chat, it's not necessarily something that I know there's kind of the social barriers that we've spoken about already, but there are also kind of more local barriers which are within the home. It's not necessarily something that would be encouraged always from the onset within the home as a career, as an extracurricular. Great, everyone's all for that. They'll be at the matches, etc., etc. Yeah. But as a career move, it's not necessarily something that you would see on a large scale encouraged, which is a great barrier in itself.
Because just casting my mind back to the interview, and actually during Black History Month last year, we actually did have a segment in regards to Asians in football, because we didn't just want to limit it to black people in football. It's a case of we also had that. So mixcloud.com/pitch talk for the shows from October 2012, and we did play a YouTube video called Asians in Football, What's Stopping Them? It's actually taken from Pitch Talk on the Road, and from one of our Pitch Talk on the Road specials. So youtube.com/Pitch Talk, in the special features and interviews playlist, you will see it there, and you'll see what was said by Manisha Taylor, Coach Gman Ali, and also Nitin Rampuria as well. And it was quite interesting, Umbreen, that you mentioned about kind of cultural barriers as well, because it's especially in the Asian community, and this is not from me, this is from what was said in our special feature interview, basically that most Asian parents will encourage their children to be doctors, lawyers, and football is not looked upon as that. It's looked upon as a pastime, but not as a career. And Manisha Taylor also says that on her Pitch Talk Meets as well, when we talk about race in football. So a couple of interesting things to look at there, and a couple of interesting things to think about, to be perfectly frank. So it's quite interesting stuff. And I mean, and at the end of the day, I mean, I want to bring Samir back in on this, because obviously, Samir, you were referring to Umbreen's point. What was that you said in the Skype chat? Would you like to articulate that to the people before we come back
just
to
to say to Umbreen, she made a really fair point, which is something I've been looking at for many years, about family and attitudes towards football. It's, to be honest, she's spot on. It's less and less, but it's still seen, by some as, it's something you do in your pastime and a bit of a hobby, but, you hit 21 or you hit 18, time for uni, go and do something serious now. So that's why guys like myself, I either did it myself individually when I was doing my days at Brentford. I would go out and actually, when I was, say, doing stuff in Southall or Hounslow, I would go out and meet families of players, for example, sit down, go and actually physically meet them and talk to them and say, listen, this is the pathway. I'm the person that's going to be dealing with this young man or lady, because we had girls football as well, and this is where they could end up. But also explaining, say, for example, there were other guys who were interested in coaching but didn't see themselves as particularly interested in going on that full way, or the family wanted them to study. I'd say, okay, well, why don't they go into? There's nothing wrong with going into law. They could be doing contracts. They could be doing other roles within the club. They could be working in administration. They could be working in sales, marketing. There's obviously the media. What are you guys doing? They could be doing something similar, doing, the pitch side stuff for experience, and then turning that into a career. Even player analysis for the guys who love playing. You've got these kids who play Championship Manager, and I used to say to the parents, you know what? Actually, I could get this kid experience actually going out and doing some Opta Index stuff. And they'd be like, really? I'll be like, yeah, because that actually can lead into something. So football, it's educating, isn't it? It's about explaining to these guys, you know what? I understand where you're coming from. I'm not going to patronize you. However, why don't you just take a look at what other things your child can do? Because at the end of the day, you know what? That's their child. That's someone that they want to have a life for. It's difficult times we're in right now as well. Jobs are scarce. So, and football is a cutthroat industry. I know it. You can get injured and your career's over and you put all your eggs in one basket. So just to finish that point, that's why a lot of the guys I try and push now, specifically if they are coming to sort of an age where I don't think that they're potentially either going to make it or they're not sure, I tell them, do an FA qualification or do something along those lines, because you know what? You'd be surprised at where your life might lead. I never thought I'll be honest with you, I laugh now when I tell people that I've been in the industry for as long as I have, because I thought there is not a cat and hell's chance I could ever go out on a Sunday morning with the rain pouring down and coach a bunch of guys that don't want to be there, and I love it. So if I can do it, anyone can.
You know what, yeah. Gezzie Fizzle, did you want to add anything to that? Because that's inspiring words. Thank you, Samir.
No, I mean, it's great. I mean, when you go and look at that in itself, in terms of you've gone and you've spoken to these, players' families, whether they be male or female, saying to them that, look, I totally understand that you have a feeling about football as a sport in terms of, in your eyes, for your kid, it's going to be about a pastime or a hobby. But then to go and expand it, to go and say, well, look, I know that you probably want your kid to move into this arena or this arena, but this is how it can be done through football. For me personally, hearing you talk about that is so inspiring that I'm wondering why there aren't more coaches and more football clubs that are encouraging their players to go and do more things like that.
Can I come in on that? Sorry
yes,
to interrupt.
No,
my personal opinion, and I'm going to take my coaching hat off, because I still think the industry is jobs for the boys. Look at the Premier League right now and look how many young guys, and it sounds like a stereotype, I believe this well and truly, because there are still too many players that are fast-tracked into management and they are not going through the system. Look at the Ajax model, for those of you who know about Dutch football. All of their ex-players, you've got Dennis Bergkamp, you've got their manager now, Mr. De Boer, who, you know, at the end of the day, they go back and they coach the kids, man, and they don't see that as a humbling experience. They do it because they realise they have to give something back to the game. Yeah. I never played at the highest level, and I still feel I have something to give back for the few years that I did manage to, you know, make a few people interested in me, because I feel now that my career was over, I have to do something to give back, you know? If more people understood that, and that's education, that's why it has felt at times for me. And I've sat in my car at the end of sessions because I've seen coaches and I've sat there thinking, you've got more qualifications than me, yet I have more common sense than you. And it's not because of the way I've been brought up or because of my mindset. It's because I've got out there and actually coached. I've actually... one thing I always tell people to finish my point is every coach, every person I talk to, I always say, turning up and banging out a session is not good enough. It's about what you leave that young person or that adult with. And if they say, do you know what, I learned this, or I realised I don't need to do that, or that guy's just, you know what, I believe in that guy. That, to me, is a football coach. And that's where we're failing the system. The system is failing still because not enough young, hungry coaches are being, not fast-tracked, but being given appropriate experience. Rant over.
No, it's one of them ones. That's going to be a rant of the week now.
Yeah, I was just about to say we're going to have to cut that up, but that was rant of the week. But yeah, I mean, as I say, you know, personally, I want to thank you on their behalf. And I know that sounds strange that I say that, but I do, because the impact of that is absolutely huge. And for me, it kind of goes back to the Straight Shootin one's original point, and this is where I'm kind of going to wrap this whole segment and we'll move on to something else, is that there needs to be more of that. You know, if we go back to older podcasts where I was talking about financial fair play and the interest of the game going forward and being able to keep football as a self-sustaining sport, you know, at the coaching level, that's more of what's needed. You know, not every player who will go into a club will end up being a player.
Yeah.
At the highest level within that same club or in football generally. Every single player that comes into that club has a lot to contribute. There's so many other skills that a lot of football players or football people or football coaches that are in and around clubs or, you know, associate with a club loosely or officially or what have you, that they can go and give back to the club or football in general that aren't being used. I'm saying to myself, what we really need now is for more of those skills to be used. So if there's somebody in the club who, for example, is very, very good at maths or wants to be an accountant, so on and so forth, why not go and teach that person more about accountancy in football? You know, their involvement, especially for the younger players, and I'm talking about the players that are, you know, say for example, secondary school, college, those players at those ages, you know, who might not necessarily go on to be greats in the game, and you know, it's just one of those things that happens for some people, but they could also go on to contribute to the club in a major way in other ways.
No, definitely.
You know, so for you to go and bring that up and find out more about what the families want and how, you know, they can go and get involved in terms of the other things that the players can do and how that's relevant to the career path that, you know, families don't want them to choose. Absolutely fantastic work. And sincerely from me, on behalf of Pitch Talk and all of our fans as well, keep up the good work that you're doing, because we need more of it in the footballing community.
No, definitely. It's one of them ones. Remember, you can find out more about what Samir is doing on at Motive8SF on Twitter and also Facebook.com/Motive8SF. So Motive 8SF. It's important. It's very, very important. So it's one of them was just good stuff. And Umbreen has said actually, it's usually profit over philanthropy. Hopefully we can change that, because football is all about money, and it's sad to see. Hopefully we can change it.